59, but I am going live.
Okay. Good. All right. All set, Selena? Is it live?
Yes, ma'am.
Good.
Set.
Okay, and welcome to tonight's regular meeting of Helotes City Council. It's January 13th, 2022. It is 7 p.m. This evening, I am honored to reintroduce my father, Dale Whitehead, pastor to pastors, visiting us from New York to give the invocation, followed by the pledges of allegiance. So, please rise.
Our Father, we thank you for your blessings and your protection on our lives. We ask your blessing upon this council meeting this evening. Give the decision makers wisdom as they consider the measures before them. And we ask your continued blessing on the city of Helotes. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right. Selena, do we have any citizens to be heard, either in person or?
Mr. Mayor, nobody signed up.
Okay. That'll bring us to consent agenda items number 3 through 4. Looking for a motion and a second to approve consent agenda as written.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve consent agenda items 3 through 4.
Okay, motion made by
I'll second
Sanders,
that.
seconded by Massey. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to a presentation, item number 5. This is an update on Helotes Creek Gravity Main and Lift Station number 246, elimination project by SAW. We have our presenter here. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Stephen Ty with BGE. We are the engineering consultant for SAW. And so we're here just to give y'all a little bit of update for the Helotes Creek Gravity Main and Lift Station Elimination Project, and as well as just kind of get anyone that's not aware of the project or know some of the details, kind of introduce and summarize it for y'all. And these are our discussion topics. We'll just kind of get into the reasons for the project, the various locations, as well as I'll give a little bit of detail on the main 3 segments of the project. Thank you, Selena. The main project purpose is twofold. Is to eliminate lift station 246, San Antonio Ranch lift station up at San Antonio Ranch, State Highway 16 and San Antonio Ranch. Obviously, lift stations and force mains, they require operation and maintenance, and so by eliminating the lift station, we will be able to reduce that necessary. By switching to a gravity main, we'll be reducing that on the system. And the second part of our purpose, as y'all would be aware, is the bypass from lift station 233, Iron Horse lift station. I'll get into it a little bit when we get the pipe, but for segment 2. But for the most part, Iron Horse can teeter at capacity sometimes, so by alleviating the demand on it, we'll be helping it a lot by rerouting the flow. All right. And so this is kind of our general slide on project location. The 3 main pipe segments are in red, green, and purple. Red is segment 1 that goes from San Antonio Ranch lift station down to Highway 16 towards Old Town Helotes. The second segment would be the green segment that goes from Riggs Road down towards 1560, and then we'll be going right around here towards Leslie Road. And then in purple would be segment 3, which is just a small section along 1560 that I'll get into once we kind of get to those slides. Like I said, the main purpose of that north part is to eliminate lift station 246. So we would be getting rid of all that equipment and the wet well and getting rid of that. Next slide, please. But from there, we would, this is an overall view of segment one. So the current lift station, the force main follows the terrain. And as you can see, what we're trying to do is we are going to eliminate lift station 246 up there to the north on the right side. And from there, by eliminating the gravity lift station, by eliminating the force main and the lift station, we would be installing a gravity main from there along the existing force main alignment along State Highway 16 down towards O10 Helotes, stopping around the Baptist Church. As you can see, some of it would be pretty deep, and so we will have a section that will be doing some trenchless tunneling to get done. And so this is a summary of basically of segment one. It's about a little over 9,000 feet of 18-inch pipe. Like I said, the kind of middle part is deep, so we'll be doing a tunneling, while the rest would be more traditional open cut and jack and bore methods. Next, we'll move on to segment two. Segment two, basically, currently the flow flows down Riggs Road, and from Riggs Road it goes down towards 1560 and it goes west towards Iron Horse Lift Station. And when it gets to Iron Horse Lift Station, it combines with all the other flow that Iron Horse receives from the area, and it goes into the force main and pumps it back the same way it just came from, eastward towards Highway 16 and down towards Leslie Road. So the key portion of segment two is we'll be picking up the flow from Riggs Road, and when we get to 1560, instead of going west, we'll be rerouting it east. That way we take all that flow from the north away out of Iron Horse, gives it more capacity, and then we'll reroute that flow into the system right across here, going across statewide Highway 16 towards Leslie Road. So that's the key portion of segment two. And again, just kind of a little summary. It'll be about 4,000 linear feet of mostly 18-inch main, and we'll be doing traditional open cut construction with some jack and bore. All right, and finally, segment three. By us eliminating that segment that takes the flow from Riggs Road to Iron Horse Lift Station, we found that the only service on that portion was the LDS Church. So segment three is just making sure the LDS Church's service stays in place. So we'll be rerouting it along the boundary of their property and then sending it directly to lift station to make sure they maintain their service. And that's the key to segment three. Again, it's very small size, 8-inch and 6-inch piping for 700 feet of 8-inch and 650 feet of 6-inch, and we'll be doing this with all open cut. All right. And you might be familiar with this. This is kind of the overall easements that y'all voted on in May to enable the route that we need to do right across the back here. And again, next slide. And finally, as well as some of the temporary construction easements and other easements that we'll be using to make sure segment three goes through for the Church of Latter-day Saints, so that their service goes directly to the lift station. And finally, I just kind of want to get into our planned schedule. We submitted our 100% to SAWS at the end of 2021. We're currently, SAWS and BG, we are finalizing the plans and finalizing some permitting items. And our plan is to basically get these plans to bid. I would anticipate towards the summer we'll start bid and then go through that whole process and have a contractor on hand with construction to start sometime in the fall. And then at this point, and I'd open up for questions for any of y'all. Yes, sir.
Thanks for the rundown, sir. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
So I got two questions. So this won't impact any of the other lifts in the nearby area. Like there's another lift halfway up Iron Horse Canyon. I think it's lift 257.
From my understanding, yeah, that it will not affect any of those lift stations that currently flows into 246, that sewer shed area still remains what it is. We're just bypassing it around.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And my other question is just, it's a dumb question, but I'm gonna throw it at you anyways.
Not all, sir.
So when you do it, and this is really pertinent, I think, to segment one, which is your longest run.
Yes, sir.
So when you guys are digging all that out on the easement, is there anybody else partnering with you as you guys are digging through that? Is there any fiber companies or anybody else planning to, because generally I think that's what they do. If somebody else is trenching, they try to come in at the same time and lay some fiber. Are you aware of any?
No, sir.
partnerships?
I understand what you're saying, especially with other kind of capital projects, for sure, it becomes a sort of joint thing. But with this, we are moving within SAWS's existing easements, and so there's, because of we're staying within those easements, it's not really a joint thing with other
Okay.
utilities. It's, yeah, the main goal is to satisfy what we're trying to do, and they have their own existing easements and use of the right of way, so we're leaving them alone and just focusing on pretty much accomplishing A to B within what SAWS has already acquired and what SAWS already has.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. All right.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Phase 3, will that eliminate that lift station?
No, phase
Or
3
just
is
more expanding the discharge?
say it again, sir.
Is it expanding the discharge? Or
No, it's really just you're talking about segment 3.
3?
Right. Segment 3 is really just an extended reroute of the Church of Latter-day Saints. Originally, the Church of Latter-day Saints was the only service that crosses 1516 into an 18-inch main that carries all that north flow. But with our reroute, we're eliminating that need for it. But to keep the LDS Church in service, we're just rerouting it towards Iron Horse. We're just finding the way to keep them in service back into the system.
So one of the things we have an issue up in Iron Horse is periodic sewer gas issue. And I'm assuming that comes from the flow that is coming down Ridge Road, having to back channel before it gets pumped this way, correct?
I'm not sure where the odor issues happen around Iron Horse. Iron Horse gets a lot of flow from several different areas, and there's several neighborhoods from up in that west side area, from my understanding. So
Flow into that lift station 223, I believe it is.
right.
Okay.
So I'm not 100% sure where the odors currently kind of happen within that system, but that flow, the significant amount of flow that currently comes from Briggs that way will be eliminated. There won't be any main.
So
area.
segment 2 does eliminate a lot of the
Correct. Yes, sir.
work from that lift station.
Right.
So theoretically, that would,
Theoretically, yeah, with way less flow, wherever the odor spots are happening, whether it's certain manholes or if it's just the amount of capacity on Iron Horse, the amount of reduction should definitely at least help odors. And yeah, in segment 3, it's just it's extension of one property of their building, so it wouldn't really cause any odors, in my estimation.
So is that kind of input from, citizens and not just us, because we have a business down in Old Town that's approached council and planning and zoning, that kind of feedback help you guys? Or were we past that point? Because Iron Horse and effectively Old Town, Helotes, around the country club area, they've complained about odors too, and I think we forwarded that off, but.
I think, Marion, we kind of talked about it in our meeting as
Yeah,
well.
okay. Well, what I'm saying is,
The segments that are in here are designed specifically because of the grades and everything. So there's no really change or modification to the current segments and designs and plans that would affect that. But essentially with what we're doing and especially in that Old Town Helotes, kind of around the church area, the flow is usually typically coming from the force main and from all sorts of forces dropping into kind of around that prime fire lane area and all that. With us having a gravity main in that area that is instead now 50 feet deep, we're hoping it would at least reduce some sort of kind of the splashing that's currently happening over there on the north side of Old Town Helotes.
That was it. Anybody else?
All right, sir. Thank you very much for your presentation. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Brings us to item number 6, looking for a motion and a second for item 6 as written.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we discuss and take action on this item number 6 is written.
Motion by
I'll
Councilman
second.
Merchant, second by Salazar. Sir?
Yeah, there's no issue here for this with me. I mean, P and Z said good, signs look great. I'm good with it.
Yeah, I wanted to echo the sentiment. I wasn't able to attend the planning and zoning meeting, but I watched the recording and it was just right across the board. They're like, it fits all the parameters. Unanimously, they voted to approve it, so that's my recommendation as well.
Okay. Any comments? Okay. All in favor of approving item number 6 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to item number 7, looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 7 as written.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we discuss and take action on item number 7 as written.
And I'll go ahead and second that.
Motion by Massey, second by Sanders.
My concern is there are two different kinds of generators. A portable generator and a standalone unit that does get connected to the house and that thing like permanently. And I think that we should make the fee schedule be very specific that this is for standalone because portable generators are like emergency use. You know, they'll be pulled out of someone's garage or someone's storage, shed and then plugged in and used that way. And I don't see how, especially during an emergency, getting an inspector out there to look at it doesn't seem right to me. So I just don't think that's a good
Portable
idea.
generators are not recommended for home use. That's more something that you would use when you go camping and things of that nature. So this process is actually going to be able for us to do a thorough review and be able to kick back something such as a portable generator. What we're looking for in this scenario is going to be what's called a whole house generator, which is, or otherwise referred to as a standby. And that's going to meet the specs and requirements of the current code that, is under our ordinance, and it'll also go through a thorough review. So some of the things that the city inspector is going to look for, so basically what we're saying is not every generator is going to qualify, the homeowner's going to have to do their due diligence as far as like some of the research, and hopefully they're geared towards doing a standby, because that's, the first thing you're going to look for is what's going to power my house in the event that, our power grid goes out.
For the purpose of an ordinance, however, we need to be a little more specific to when you just say generator, that covers a lot of things. And that's my concern.
Okay.
And I believe we certainly can clarify that. As I read this is about the installation of a home house that ties in. So it would not apply at all to portable generators, only for when tied into a house, and why you need the electrical permit.
And plumbing.
And the
correct.
plumbing permit. So it's 2 permits in one, and also by doing it this way, it actually saves the resident some money. So it's, the 1 permit is less than the 2 separate permits combined.
Well, and I think the main issue though that we're gonna nip in the bud is that we're also gonna be able to do that thorough plan review. Because if you do them the old way that we do, which are counter permits, which would be your trades permits, you're not getting that thorough review that you would with this type of permit.
So, yeah, and portable generators, you'd be hard pressed to try to wire that into your house. And that's the only thing we're looking for, is things that are wired into a house to ensure that nothing is rigged in such a way that it would cause damage or harm to either people at that location or backwards in the grid, and somebody's working on a line, et cetera. And that's the purpose
so-
of having a good inspection on that, including interior review and CO monitors, et cetera.
Yeah, so streamlining this process is also gonna allow the homeowner to or even the trades, licensed trade contractor to download specifics as to like, they're literally gonna be able to download the PDF and give us the entire specs of the generator itself so that we can ensure that, on behalf of the resident, that, we're following all safety protocols.
To address your concerns, are you suggesting you would like to see some verbiage that says for generators that are tied into a,
It says standby home generator. Is that a generic term for what you're talking about?
For a whole house generator, yeah.
It says standby home generator, so I guess that does cover it. That's on
Yeah.
our, the ordinance.
yes,
Okay.
okay.
Mr. Mayor, may I also make a suggestion? And I think this is what you're targeting, is if someone were to pull up just the fee schedule alone and see item L, generator permit, I can understand or see how that could cause some confusion. So if you guys are amenable to it and it's an easy fix for staff to do, is we could just say item L, standby generator permit. And that's how it would appear on the fee schedule.
Standby home generator.
Standby or home, it would be under the residential
Residential.
section already. So I think by adding standby,
Okay, that's, that
because
would be
someone may
helpful.
not go to the ordinance and see that it says
Right,
standby.
okay. That sounds good to me.
So my question, and it's for staff, and I don't know if you're directly involved in this, Michael, you probably are, is, so the fee of $200, how did we come to get that? Did we benchmark off other cities like ours? Because I know in the past, we had a tendency to be very high fees, higher
Yeah.
than other communities, so
So-
I'm just curious how we came
So
about.
one of the challenges that we face in this area is that Helotes is getting a lot of these requests, right? So if we look at our neighbors, for example, Leon Valley, they don't have a generator permit. They go the old route of doing like a building permit and then going from there, which could be, costly to the homeowner. We were doing it 2 trades permits, and then we had to connect the dots. We have a plumber ready to install a generator, but we don't have an electrician, so we kind of go back and forth that way. Up further north, I mean, I can't say like, Alamo Heights or Balcones Heights or anybody in the general vicinity has this, but further north, there are some cities that do, and they're starting at $400 roughly.
Wow.
But that was one of the things that, in discussing this with the mayor is that, hey, we want to also be cost conscientious for the residents, and be able to provide this. So when we sat down with our city inspector, we kind of combed through everything and said, okay, well, this is going to actually cover, the permit, the inspection, administrative fees.
Right.
So we were able to keep it,
So-
within range.
So you said what I wanted to hear. We've done some benchmarking, we've done some market research to see how other communities are doing this. And we think we're setting a fair and reasonable fee.
Yeah.
And of course, we reassess the fees every year. So if we got it wrong, we can adjust it accordingly. So, and this question, it just makes me think, since this is happening and this is probably all a spinoff of the storm we had last year, right?
Yeah.
Are we running it, are we covered for the battery systems that are being installed with the solar power systems? Is that already covered? Because I know many people in Helotes are starting to do that as well.
As far as like solar panels,
It's not, before it was mostly solar panel and then you were just getting credit from the energy company. But now people are installing batteries so that they actually can retain some of their electricity so that they can power their own homes. Same concept of why you would have a generator. That's something that's happening. That's not really a topic on this, but they're kind of like related in a way. They're spinoffs, I think, from.
We're getting close to the line of going to a different topic because this agenda item was specifically
Yeah.
generators, but when you're installing solar panels, they are having to pull a permit with the electrical so anybody that does have a battery, that is included in the installation from the solar and
Yeah.
falls under that permit. So
And
to answer your question on that, that is covered under another topic.
I wasn't trying to stray.
No,
It's just
I
they were
get
kind
that.
of related, so target of opportunity. Sorry, Michael.
No, it's all good.
That's all I have.
Okay, anybody else?
No, I thought that was a good question.
No, it's an excellent question.
Yeah, because I looked into it too. I was able to speak with the head of CPS, and he assured me that while the grid issue was not fixed, that CPS has been working really hard. And the main thing they were working on is what they could control, which is being able to do those rolling blackouts where they would power you down for 15 minutes and then power you back up and then go to the next section. Not only have they tested it and he said that it's ready to go, they brought an outside organization to come in and certify that that is ready to go. So hopefully we won't need the generators, but it's good that we have this in place for the people that want to have that ready, just in case.
Here, I moved all the way down from New York 20-some years ago to escape that, and apparently I didn't go far enough south. No.
All right.
Okay, well, with no other discussion, let's go, oh, I'm sorry.
I do have one more question. And I think maybe you told me this, but I can't remember. So is carbon monoxide protection inside the home required with our permit?
It's carbon monoxide protection.
Protection or warning, like.
So
monitors.
protection's the same, right? So you have a fire alarm, you have a carbon monoxide monitor. So there are municipalities who require that with.
That's required under the fire code when they're building a new home. Some old homes are grandfathered in, so it depends on when the home was built.
Got you. So, I mean, wouldn't this be a good thing to add with this permit itself?
Well, we'll have to look at that and talk with our inspectors and see with the the International Fire Code in which we can implement that. And because if that's the case, then if you do something like that, are you saying you want to require that in all homes?
Well, it's a requirement for building a new home now, and if you're gonna add something that could potentially, because
Okay, we
run
will
on
look at that.
fuel and
Since this
they
is not a topic
go
on this,
into
we
the
will look
house.
at that to see what we are able to do for older homes that were built prior to that International Fire Code being implemented.
Okay.
So just to
I'm good with that.
clarify, what we're talking about, the issue here is the actual building fee. We could take a look and see if there's something to be added to our ordinance for requiring carbon monoxide detectors with the installation of a generator.
Yeah.
And that would be, we'd have to bring that back on a separate item for discussion and action on that to add that.
Correct.
It's unfortunate, but I'm sorry.
No,
I
no,
think
that's an excellent
No.
question.
might be something to look at.
All right. Any other comments? Okay, in that case, all in favor of approving item number 7 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Mayor, if that motion can be amended,
Yep, let's back up a little bit here. We do have with the,
include revising the name of the title of the permit.
I do.
So,
Yeah, I'm, since I made the motion, I guess I can,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to amend it to add to the actual list of fees, that this is for standby home,
Yes, ma'am.
home generators.
And then I'll
Sanders?
second that.
Seconded, okay, so we now have an amended motion to vote on, approving item number 7 as written with the exception of adding the word standby generator to the fee schedule as listed. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Selena.
Thank you, Selena.
Okay, so looking for a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 8 as written.
Mr. Mayor, I motion that we discuss and take action on item number 8.
Motion by McCrossin, second by
I'll second it.
Sanders. Okay, prior to getting this, if I might just take a point of order here, where the ARPA funds are grant funds given to us through federal funding. And the challenge here is that they make an enormous amount of money available nationwide and municipality by municipality. And we have a pool of funds that are available to us. However, if we can't use those funds for very specific items, then we have to return those funds. So the challenge here, and what you see before you, is a list of the items specifically that we are looking at being able to do, was the culmination of a great deal of scouring for not only things that we would like to do, but things that actually could qualify for expenditures that we made during the COVID and the emergency environments that we were operating under that were beyond what we normally budgeted for. And so they can be in the form of certain reimbursements, but the restrictions are fairly severe. And again, it's a challenge to find out what could possibly qualify. So it's not a environment of, hey, we would like to do this project and let's use money for that. It has to be either something where we lost revenue, has to be something that we spent money above and beyond what we had planned, or it has to be a project that would fit amongst the very limited items that were warranted by and dictated out by the ARPA funding. Marion, did you have anything you want to add before we, to give a background?
No, and every project that we provided the listing for, we actually verified that those projects were eligible. There were some other projects that we listed. We went back to the state to find out if they were eligible, and there were some that were not, so they didn't make the list. So we did our due diligence to ensure that the projects that we have in front of you are projects that met the categories that we can spend and meet the interim final decision. There is another final decision on the ARP funds, but that doesn't go in effect until April 2022. And that will be for the second round of funding, which is the other half of our funding that we're eligible for. And so there's some other things that they actually opened up and allowed for just because of, I guess, questions or concerns, or because they felt that this was so limited, but those will not be for this first round. It would be for the second round.
So with that background, we'll turn it over to Councilman Crossan.
Well, I appreciate the explanation in response to some of the questions I had in terms of what I saw on the agenda. And just for those in the gallery, up here in the dais, we have an ARPA Grants Fund first tranche disbursement packet that is a supplement to the agenda here that kind of expands on what council saw as the agenda was posted last Friday. I think that there's some good ideas here. I appreciate the due diligence. I appreciate the follow-up with, what y'all did to identify these projects. You answered a handful of the questions that I already had coming into this meeting. So at this point, I still am uncomfortable with voting on it tonight because this is a huge amount of money. I first saw the projects on Friday when the agenda was published, and then obviously, we have this here tonight to look at. And correct me if I'm wrong, we do have some time to make a decision on what projects we approve.
We do. We have time to spend these funds. Some of these projects, it just depends. And the reason they give it to you is because it takes bidding, it takes time out. Again, all these are cost estimates, whatever we don't. So let's say we put a project out there and we thought we were going to spend 100,000, but the bid comes out to 75,000, then that's all we're going to spend on that project, and the funds will go back in, it's a reimbursement, type of thing. And we have it in a separate account. So we will account for every penny of that. So yes, you do have until 2024 to spend all that. Some of these projects we're looking at. So what they do is they give you the first half to spend for 21 and 22, and then they give you the second half for 22 and for 23 and 24. But some projects might be huge enough that you're going to spend it for all of until 2024. So that's up to council.
And just to point out, do you remember the total amount that was allocated? I believe
It was 2.3 million.
2.3 million. You'll notice that we only have about half of that in these projects. So the challenge isn't that we have this much and we've already allocated it all out. It's hard to find the ability to be able to. Undoubtedly, we're going to have to return that some of that money back. So it's not so much that we're doing this as opposed to this. this is all we can find in the realm of Helotes that fits under that, and we've been working very hard to find what can we possibly, notwithstanding where we stand, there's the amount of money that they're spending is astronomical on this project, but that's what they've dished out on the federal level. So now we have to try to find out, is there anything we can do to benefit the city to use it? And so far, we can only come up with enough to cover about half of the money that they allocated. And that is using several people on staff scouring every possible project that might possibly fit. So it's not a case that something's going undone because we're doing one of these. This is the only things we can find, period. But there's still another roughly $1.2 million that can be available for additional projects that may come up or that we may be able to find, or if another emergency situation happens or something else that we can dig up that can be added and discussed on future. And we can even, if we come up with another one before the end of the first tranche, I believe we can still add one, can we not, Marion?
That is correct. And like I said, there's the final decision was just released last week. So Tabby and I are reading through that. They actually expanded some of the categories, but those are not eligible for this first expenditure. It's eligible for the second one, which will be released in the summer.
So what we're really talking about here and bringing before you is these projects which have been identified as needs of our community or expenditures that we have already spent, but now can get reimbursement out. We didn't plan on spending the money for COVID rapid test, but now through this, we can get reimbursed for money that we had to spend out of our contingency fund. And now this gives a chance for us to tap into the funds that was granted on a federal level. So our action tonight is to say, for these ones so far, we approve submitting them as a council, and now if anything else comes up, we can add to this list without taking these away, if you will.
No, I can understand that. I appreciate the work that everybody's done, but the point I'm making is that while everybody else has, intimate knowledge and working and staff, this is their job. I saw this on Friday, and then I show up today and I got a packet. So I'm uncomfortable, point blank, with without knowing what the options are, what the new guidance is, and doing my due diligence to understand that what I'm being presented tonight and potentially vote on is the trust but verify, basically, and that's where I'm coming from, because and especially when we talk, that's question number one for me. So I mean, we're talking about reimbursement and stuff. So what is the process? Does that mean it goes in the general fund? Is this reallocated, or like you said, if we don't spend money goes back to the federal government? So I need, you see where I'm going? Like, there's a bunch of questions that this generated where, I mean, I'm not necessarily advocating for a workshop on it, but I think at least, 2 more weeks for the next council meeting. I don't know how everybody else feels, obviously, when I'm done, we'll know, but I think, 2 extra weeks of looking at this and a few more questions, not that many, just a few on the email, would alleviate my concerns.
Okay.
And that's all I have.
Councilman Sanders?
So I had a lot of questions about this as well when I saw this last Friday. And so I went out and pulled down some further guidance, and I think you guys probably, the staff probably had that guidance, which breaks out all those little restrictions and, what you can actually fund and these things. So it gave me ideas. And so I've been, I went through and it's for me, I can't vote for something if I don't understand it, if I don't see how it connects to the criteria. I've been able to do that with everything from category 1 through category 5 and 7. Category 6, I find problematic. I want to understand. So, but Marion said something very important that was new information to me. I didn't know that we had already bounced this off a higher echelon above us in the process that have said these are good. I know in the course of me going through this, though, I had an idea. I'm not sure everyone thought my idea was great, but I would like to pull that string a little further. I mean, I can bring it up now, or it's really moving the marquee. And we publish a lot of public COVID information, but nobody can see it, or we could be able to do it.
To specifically identify, you're talking about our electronic sign out there?
Yes, sir. And there's a criterion there that I saw about public communication, information and data. And that is clearly what that system provides. Again, thinking outside the box, I would like to think through this and actually provide a little bit more background on that if I could, to see if that's a project that could be added to this. I still struggle with category 6, but I'm more relieved to hear that higher echelon, somebody higher up in the state government has kind of given the head nod and said, this looks good. I don't see any harm in us pushing this out to another session before I'm comfortable voting on it.
So, and that's certainly fine if council decides that. Remember what we're talking about here. If there's additional project, we can always add additional project, because we have another $1.2 million that after combing, we can't find a single penny that we can, to date, with the exception of an additional item that you talked about, which, as a side, that sign is problematic with our code to begin with, that we should even have it. But that's a whole separate issue that we can talk about, whether or not
I
we
would
should
love
tear
to
it
see
down.
a place where
Right.
people could actually see it, and we could actually communicate, another way of communicating with the public.
Yeah, no, and you know me, I'm full for communication. I'm not really for telling everybody they can't have a sign, then us putting it up there and saying, you can't do this, but we can. It does not seem to be consistent, and I have a fundamental problem with the existence of that sign in the first place. Notwithstanding, that doesn't mean we can't add that portion. What we're trying to do here, and if you all want to hold off, we'll hold off, but the question is, these projects, if we don't do these projects, then we're sending this money back, and we're not doing these projects and not getting the money. So that's the understanding here. Now, we, above and beyond this roughly 1.2 million, we have another 1.2 million dollars that we can do additional projects if we can muster up something that fits in the categories. And in communications, in my opinion, that's a decent thing to explore, and we can run that up the flag to the aforementioned authorities to see if that would fit in there. Certainly, that's not a $1.2 million project. That's a minor project on that aspect, but really the focus of tonight's is staff was able to identify and get approved and get listed at least a portion of the funds, so we don't lose all of that money. And if you look at each one, the police vehicles these are definitely needed. There isn't anything on here that isn't needed or money that has already been spent, right? So it's an opportunity for us to actually recover excess monies, and that's really all we're looking at. If you all decide you want to push it off, then or
Still have 3 people to talk.
no, I understand.
I was just going to say, I would love to hear what my colleagues have to say.
So let's start over here.
Yeah, I don't have the issues that my colleagues over there have with this. I had plenty of time to look at everything, and of course, I've been on the council for 14 years, so this kind of things has come through a lot. And Rich is exactly right. This isn't, the staff has done their due diligence. They know better than us, frankly, what is needed around here. And I think that we should move forward with this. Holding it for 2 weeks isn't going to change anything other than we may lose the ability to get some of the things and get reimbursements and get things that we need. So I just think that we're looking, and as far as a new marquee sign, that's a whole total different issue. That's going to have to go through another, item for consideration, because it is a sign, and so now it has to go through something different. Yeah, I guess it could be put on there, but it has to go through the process of being, voted on, accepted through planning and zoning, and then through us and all of that again. But, that's, to me, that's like a red herring. We don't need to worry about that at this point. But I think that it's wrong to not just vote and say, yes, let's see if we can get reimbursed for things we've already spent money on. And all of the things in here are good. And if they've already been approved by the higher ups, I don't see what more we can do. And if we want to, apparently we can add more things to it. So take the next 2 weeks and see what else you want to add to it. But I think they've already identified these things. It's needed. We should vote for it tonight. That's my take.
Huh? Appreciate your take. For me, I'm with Mr. McCrossan. This is too much too soon. If I learned about this Friday, and I'm guessing there's about 45 people who live in Helotes that have seen this list. We got almost 10,000 people that need to see this and see what we are spending money on. That is our responsibility. They need to see this.
That's why we are elected, to make the decisions.
Right, but we are elected to make the decisions, but we're also
Crazy.
obligated and responsible to inform the people who pay for this, to let them know what this is and to show them that we have $1.2 million to spend. Here's where we're going to spend it. What do you think? There's, whether we push it 2 weeks isn't that big a deal in this government bureaucracy and the way this works. And I think the people who live here deserve that.
Okay, so remind me, when do we need to vote to approve this so that we don't lose the money?
Marion, can you give some
There is not
deadlines?
a set deadline. We do need to expend all the money by 2024, like all the 2.4 million. But a lot of these projects do need to go out for bid. And basically, it's not saying you're going to spend exactly. You're just giving authority to staff to start looking at these projects, and you're allocating those funds for those projects, not to exceed that amount, is what you're doing. You're basically saying, okay, you have 1.2 of the 2.4, you're not going to exceed those amounts in those categories. These categories are the categories set by the federal government and stated basically these are the only categories. There are certain eligibilities, like example, the broadband, being able to put broadband in neighborhoods. Well, a lot of our neighborhoods we looked at that, and we're going to continue to look at that because our neighborhoods don't qualify for the fact that the neighborhoods are not low socioeconomic neighborhoods. And so you have to meet certain criteria by the federal government. A lot of it goes to homelessness. A lot of it goes to low socioeconomic neighborhoods. And so a lot of the categories we didn't qualify for as a city. We sent out some things and they didn't qualify because of our census tract. So these were the ones that we were able to send to them and say, okay, do these qualify? As for category 6 and revenue replacement, what it was is there is a calculation that you do by the revenues you get from 2016 to 2019, compare it to the revenues estimated for the next 4 years and what the revenue loss was. And so that was the amount that we qualified for. And then there's only certain things that you can purchase with that revenue loss. And so these were the items that we sent up, and they said yes, that they qualified under that revenue loss.
Well, I'm still talking. So thank you so much, Marion, for explaining that to me. And I would like to kind of point out that I feel like I still have a lot more to understand. I actually would like for us to do a workshop where, we could just ask more questions. I would love to hear what ideas got shot down. Maybe we could come at it from a different angle if we put our heads together and say, well, we went at it this way, but what if we went at it that way? Maybe we could get approval. Just see what we can come up with and what we can contribute. It would maybe be helpful to get input from the citizens. Maybe somebody out there has a better idea. Well, hey, the best idea wins. If they have an idea that we could add in, let's add it in. I would rather not send any money back to the federal government. I would like to see it used here in Helotes for the benefit of our citizens.
Greg?
Absolutely. So I think what I hear everyone saying is, well, first for me, the selling point is it's already been approved. That I didn't understand. And what Marion, that calculation that she just described justifies why I did not understand that particular category. Because otherwise it looked like we were just buying stuff and I didn't know how that tied in. So now I understand that portion of it, which I had a huge, huge question about. So I feel better about that. So, but what I think I hear the group saying is, well, here's where I'm coming from. Based on what I have just learned and all this dialogue and discussion, I'm okay with supporting what's on there right now. But I think what we're discussing is a follow-on workshop that Councilmember Salazar brought up, and I know Councilmember Merchant brought up, and you too, Matt, about let's try to get involved in a second piece of this to see how we can spend the rest of the money. For me, the selling point is it's approved. I didn't know it was approved. That's the first I heard. I thought we were still working it at our level and we had something to say about it. So, and then hearing Marion's explanation, I'm comfortable with what's on there right now to spend the money on, but I think I would like to be more involved in the second piece of this.
And that's an excellent point. Again, it's not really a case of, hey, what do you think we should do? It's a case of what you can or you can't do. And so a workshop would be, I very much look forward to a workshop and hearing what ideas you guys have and go out and talk to the public and see what they think and then apply it to the list and then go back and tell them, no, none of those work because these are the only things that qualify what's listed on this paper already. Because that's pretty much where we've been.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
As far as timeliness on the items that are on this list, for example, COVID kits. There aren't very many rapid tests out there. I talked with a lady, she had to go all the way to Round Rock, and she has a challenged child with some special limitations, and she had to go all the way to Round Rock because there wasn't anybody with rapid tests. And so part of this money can get stuff in the works and rolling. I don't think it's going to be a case of we're going to say, hey, let's not get COVID tests. Instead, let's do another project or increase on something. There's only so much that we can do in the form of reimbursements or expected cost for items. And even with all of that, scrubbing every possible thing that we could find, we still only come up with half the money. So it would seem to me that I think Councilwoman Massey had an excellent point. These are items that we've already spent, items that we need, items that have already been approved, and items that still only take up half. And this is what we could find for staff. Let's get these, in my opinion, let's get these things rolling. And let's have a workshop. Let's go out and talk and come up with any ideas that we can possibly come up with. Because quite honestly, if we can find a single dollar, it's going to come as a fairly decent surprise to us because we beat every bush. But I would love to find out, some additional ideas. This is like the first stab. Let's get the first runs through. Now we've got 2 more years to be able to find any additional ideas or concepts in your conversations with public or whatever, and then take those ideas, get out your research books, go to town and figure out any way that you think you can possibly find to put them together, and hopefully we'll find a few more projects we can do. But knowing the manpower that went into finding these projects, I will be personally surprised if we find very much more that can be uncovered, except for the few projects were already mentioned that become available in the second listing.
So to be clear, I don't have a problem with anything on this list. I just have my problem is that it's not public information until tonight. That's my problem. The citizens of Helotes have no idea what
That's not
this
true.
is.
Really? When was the agenda posted? Was it posted on Friday?
This
For
package
everyone.
wasn't posted.
Well, yes, it was.
This?
Yeah, this is
this
as
was
a post
posted.
for you.
This is the same stuff. It's just a little bit, yeah. It was posted.
Councilmember Merchant, yeah, the amounts haven't changed.
No, I don't mean amounts. I just mean this is
This
a
one
much
just-
better.
This one just
list
provides a
and
breakdown
easier.
of the items.
Right,
But
it's-
making it public information is also not an issue. We could certainly post this on the website,
That would be fair.
and it'll also be in the minutes.
That would be fair.
But I just want to make, I'm sorry, may I speak?
Please.
I just want to make, the comment that we are elected officials. We are elected to represent the citizens of Helotes. So for us to sit around saying, oh, well, I can't make a decision, I have to let the citizens come, and we have to have a workshop, we have to have all the citizens come and weigh in on this. That's not the way this works. The way it works is we're elected, we make decisions, we're the ones who they elect, and if they don't want us again, they won't vote us into office. So I'm sorry you only had 5 days to look at it. I know some of you work outside the home. I work too. I work very hard, but I work inside the home. I make time to go through all of this. Of course, I've been on the council a lot longer than you guys, so I understand how this works. You know, you can't pass the buck and say, oh, I need 2 more weeks to look at this. I guarantee you, nothing's going to change.
Okay, so personally, I don't need a lecture on what my job is, but to give you an example of something that I would have sent to staff in an email is, you want to spend, where's the restrooms?
Restrooms are category number, sorry.
2.
2.
Category 2.
You want to spend 100 grand on restrooms. Insurance-wise, it's a liability for the city. That impacts us when we got to do our budget workshop. In terms of an asset and liability on a balance sheet, it's a liability. It's not producing income. We got to maintain it. Now that's something we got to vote on. And correct me if I'm wrong, we had $106 left over this year, or last fiscal year, whatever our razor thin margin was. So you're going to sign us up, say, let's build this facility. My due diligence as an elected official is to make sure these questions are answered. So when it comes for the next budget time, we're not looking back and saying, oh yeah, we approved this. It may be one point, and I'm willing to come to a certain point in this discussion here, perhaps with an amendment, but something like that, that's a liability for us going forward and whoever comes after us.
That was approved in a previous council. It would have to be disapproved again. But I'm all for that.
So
I think it's an amenity for the citizens. And it's been something
We
they've requested.
currently maintain porta potties there. So we do have porta potties, and there's still a liability because we do have porta potties at those locations, which are, you know, there's a company, but we do hire and we pay a monthly fee for that.
So this is the part of the discussion that, you know, and that's the whole purpose of this. And I think that's a more appropriate thing in picking up a line item and to provide a little bit more clarity on that specific. There's been a lot of requests to have facilities and public restroom facilities. We know, you know, especially say, for example, on market days, to be able to have use of facilities versus porta potties, and out at that park, we already have liability, we're paying for it, now we won't have to pay for rentals, which will clear up money to be able to utilize for maintaining a facility. It does add to a facility, even though it was an item that was previously discussed and that has been identified as a need for the city to be able to have permanent facilities there, and it's an appropriate expenditure. And actually, the budgetary savings, as far as to answer your specific question on this item, budgetary savings from having to rent porta potties and the liability exposed to that. The liability is the same. The porta potty expenditures are actually quite significant, and now that will be savings for just regular maintenance on top of what we're already having to send our guys out there anyways. So we really don't lose any. It's the same cost of what we're spending on our manpower. It's just now we don't have that rental fee. Instead, we have a facility be able to be built by the ARPA funds, and now we actually end up saving money on the budget. So long term, it does have a savings. But I do understand the question, and that's part of the point of having this discussion and action, is to be able to, hey, what about this line item? So maybe perhaps that would have been a better way to have approached this on my part, is, hey, let's go through here line item by line item. Does anybody have any questions on the items or what it serves? So toss it out. Maybe if there's any other, specific thing there, but go ahead.
Okay, so if we're going to do that, I would love to have a better understanding of, under category 1, the COVID supplies, the testing kits. Would that be for employees? Is that for citizens? How many? How quickly would we get those?
As of right now, the COVID supplies on the testing kits, it would definitely, depending on how many we can get, definitely for employees. Right now, we cannot, we have the ability to test all our employees, but because we are not able to get them from STRAC. We are not able to do that. So employees do have to now go outside of the city to test for COVID. And that, especially with our public safety, is very hard because they're exposed to COVID, especially EMS and fire, on a daily basis. So depending on how many testing kits, now we don't have the manpower as of right now to test for citizens, but that's something we can consider and look at. And that's why we put this out there. If you want to consider that and looking at increasing and having some kind of COVID testing site, those monies can be there for that. At this point of time, we don't have the manpower to be able to have that, but there are funds for either this at this stage or at the next one to set something up. But for that 20,000, it would just be for the employees.
And I can say that on that specific item, we do have a number of people and employees that do have COVID. Marion,
Right here.
sorry, but myself, I was recently was able to utilize the test here to be able to identify in my second round of COVID, to be completely transparent. That's how I spent Christmas. But now we're not even able to test our own employees, which now we have to send them out, and then we have to look at quarantine because we don't have an answer, and now we can't find a testing. So on that particular line item, that is actually very time sensitive. So pushing off a couple weeks does actually have some, even though that's a minor amount in cost comparison, there are some timely factors in some of these items.
Okay, so follow-up question. If we prove this tonight, would we be able to even get the tests?
Yes, we've actually contacted 3 different vendors and found, we've contacted several vendors and found 3 that have availability, and we found the one that has the lower cost.
Okay, and then kind of to follow up on that, is there any way we can increase the amount so that we might be able to provide the testing for our citizens, perhaps by contracting, if we had the money, could we contract people who could administer the tests here for our citizens?
Yeah, we could look into that. And at that point, as long as you approve some of the category, we can move some monies around from another category, such as we just put an amount on the investment of the broadband infrastructure, but move some of those funds because, like I said, I think it's going to be significantly lower than that 250, and move some of those funds into just category 1 to cover that. But I can't give you a full cost estimate right now. It will take a while because we'd have to find out what that cost would be, and if what agencies are available to do that.
Okay, thank you.
And then, of course, if we want to, in the second stage, expand that. Right now, we don't have there's such a shortage of people to do that actual testing, number one, and two, to make that commitment. That was, I believe, an excellent topic to talk about in a workshop about, can we bring on some extra people? But there's clearly a lot of space to be able to add that component in the second phase, or even in this first phase as a second an addendum. But by voting on approving this, and I think this is good. If there's any other specific line items that people have specific questions on, as far as what's here.
And then remind me when the second phase.
Second phase.
The release of the
324.
funds will happen sometime between April and July.
So we have the funds for phase 1 was already released. So now we got to figure out and submit what we're going to do out of this phase 1 funds, and then we've got that money to turn back. And then we have the second phase that will be released. And I don't know if we'll even be able to find any projects that will qualify in the second phase. Very little, because like I said, we're trying to find everything possibly could. Is there any specific items that we would like to further discuss on these lists? For example, category 4 was already previously paid, the reimbursement portion.
Actually, not category 4, category 1 for
Category
the
1, I'm sorry.
overtime.
Yeah, the overtime.
Yeah, category 1 for the
Was
overtime.
already spent.
Category 4 has not been as of right now.
Part of this expenditure is also beneficial because if we can qualify for the 2 police cars, for example, in category 6. Those 2 patrol vehicles, if we can get them under ARPA, to your point, Matt, is that it would actually help our budget in the fact that next year we won't have to expend that money. But right now, we don't have that, and so therefore we could get those 2 vehicles, and therefore that will relieve. But if we don't take that, then we will ship that money back to the government and we'll spend it out of expenditures. So this is not money that our citizens are spending out of our local tax base.
Yeah,
This is money that if we send it back, they'll wrap it up and send it someplace else, but, and then we will be spending that money out of our tax base.
I didn't hear anywhere where we're gonna send this money back in the next 2 weeks. I'm pretty firm in waiting and letting people see this list
Okay.
more clearly. I can't find it anywhere where they're releasing any of these funds yet.
That's,
Sometime-
when did they release our initial funds?
We actually got the funds, we got the funds August or September. I have to look.
Yeah.
I want to say it was September.
About this now.
It's taken us that long to find projects that will qualify. And unfortunately, due to quorum rules, we can't involve y'all in the process until it's brought here. That's, you can thank the,
Well, that makes sense.
I don't make the rules, I just have to follow by the rules of our government. Is there anything on this list you would like to see not spent that you feel does not benefit the city?
So, I mean, this, you know, I came in here with some questions that Marion obviously answered with Craig. And I had a certain perspective. I was willing to come, you know, halfway. Got a little divisive. That's not what the intent was. You know, and so in terms of the deliberative process, I appreciate, you know, us taking the time to go through it. And so, you know, something is I agree we need the restrooms there, but something is like that if, you know, the assurance that you gave me, something like that, and any of these other, you know, potential liabilities will be mitigated in terms of our budget, you know, and at a top level, not, you know, as necessarily, I know what the line item is now. I could vote to approve this now because obviously other things are near term and they take, there's a, what's the word I'm looking for? Urgency, thank you. Urgency to do it, and I don't want to be held up because of difference in viewpoint on, you know, specifically for me, one item that, you know, we'll figure it out, you know, once it gets built, what the maintenance costs and all that is. Everything else I agree with, I support, so that's where I'm at. I don't want to be divisive anymore. I don't, and with that, I can concede it, and I would not amend anything right now. With that being said, if that's, because we did talk about workshops and all that stuff, that's my position on it. I'm comfortable, you know, doing that with what Rich provided in response to the pork pies and all that with the facility being built.
I am fully supportive of following this up, and Marion will get it on and appropriately publicized for a future workshop to be able to discuss what else we can get and bring in any ideas, and maybe even make it available to the public for anybody that has interest to input. We'll do that regardless of whatever the decision is tonight in addition. So what the action item for tonight would be approving the current list. There certainly leaves the door open for additional things to be added. This is just really the first swipe and the first amount of projects that we can get paid for. It is an important topic. You brought out some great points. Cynthia, you brought out some excellent and important perspectives, and that is what we are here to do. We are here to make some decisions, but Councilman Merchant, it is important to inform everybody what is going on and what they are going to be able to benefit from. And we will post this. It was posted in the agenda, not broken down to this detail, But is there anybody else that has any additional comments or input at this point?
No.
So I just want to piggyback off what Matt said before. I think we're probably ready to vote on this. So I came in here with certain doubts and questions in my mind. So I know this was a long, drawn-out discussion with different perspectives, but again, my questions and maybe my pre-biases coming in here, I've been able, as we are all listening to each other, been able to change my perspective. And I got a lot of answers, like Matt was saying, a lot of questions were answered that I didn't know and that I couldn't glean out of this package. So maybe in the future, and this isn't an amendment or anything, it's just FYI, something this potentially complicated that will drive a lot of discussion, like we do with a lot of brand new ordinances. We do a preview or whatever we call it. We have this long drawn out discussion and bring up all, maybe some pitfalls, come back, address, and then vote on it. But anyways, I'm prepared to vote on this, and I've changed my mind, and I'll support it since it's already been pre-approved.
Any other discussion?
No.
Okay. With no further discussion, all in favor of approving item number 8 as written, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. This brings us to our final item, which is the mayor's report. And this is an update on the joint use agreement between Kenneth and Mary Sue Dempsey and the city of Helotes for set up production and tear down a marketplace at Old Town Helotes. In June 24th, council authorized me as mayor to negotiate and execute an agreement. We had come to the terms that you had all approved, and that was after a collaboration with the contractees. We delivered the contract. There was a request for a name change that we processed. We wanted it written in a different name. We processed it. Despite numerous electronic, phone, and in-person discussions and requests, we could not obtain a signature from the Dempseys on the contract. And for a myriad of reasons that at the end, I still don't understand. But the option was to sign the contract and us be able to pay, or not sign the contract and us to continue to use the facilities for free. But we cannot pay on a contract that is not signed. And when all was said and done, he refused to sign. So I've had to revoke our offer and leave the door open, and we'll continue to leave the door open to start afresh and figure out if there whatever misunderstandings or questions there were. And I look forward. We have an amicable relationship and a high appreciation for all that the Dempseys have done for the city and for Old Town, and utmost respect. And I believe that is a very mutual feeling. But the sum of that discussions was that we wanted to get together probably as early as next week to sit down and discuss and relook at the exact same options, and look forward and highly anticipate us figuring out something that's amicable and to bring to you for reevaluation and approval at a later date.
May I ask a question when you give a report? Is that legitimate? I just have a question. So have we not been honoring the contract since it hasn't been signed? In other words, we haven't been paying him the $1,000 a month that we had put us, is that?
That is correct.
Okay. And so how does that affect Marketplace?
It doesn't.
Okay.
So we currently have a contract for us to be able to use the facilities for free, including all the facilities listed in the contract. My understanding is that the intent there is that there was a previous liability issue, and by us writing that contract, and by us, I mean the city of Helotes, previously, I believe that was back in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, it provided a way to eliminate any liability from Mr. Dempsey, and in exchange for that, we got use of the facilities. The intent of the current offering was to expand what we're using, including the use of the stage, and offer them a sum that I feel is more appropriate than free. And I highly anticipate that we'll be looking at that again for what is appropriate to bring to you before. But legally, the city can't just dole out money to something that is on a contract that isn't signed.
Right.
And we don't have a signed contract. And despite numerous attempts, amicable as they were, positive conversations in both directions, respectful in both directions, I cannot explain. I have no words. But when all is said and done, we don't have a contract because it's not executed. So we have to revoke and we'll start afresh. I've reached out and I anticipate meeting with Mr. Dempsey next week. And we will start that process and we'll go from there. But that's the state of it. So it was never executed, and so we can't just leave it open forever. We had placed forth a deadline for returning it in.
Okay.
So I don't have a full explanation because I don't fully understand, but it is what it is, and we'll start next week and see if we can't get something for the new year that serves both interests in a positive manner. So with that, we will be adjourning tonight's meeting. We're adjourned at 8:17.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.